CH101 presents The Grateful Dead Counterfeiter. Produced and story by Harmon Leon and Alex Stark. Written, edited, and sound designed by Harmon Leon. Some names have been changed for privacy reasons.
The hippies are capable of extremely hard work. This is the house of a popular local band which plays hard rock music. They call themselves the Grateful Dead.
During the 1960s, San Francisco was a mecca for music.
There's a whole sense of freedom in San Francisco right now.
And the counterculture.
San Francisco can become a holy city.
But eventually, people started exploiting this counterculture movement. As the 60s came to a close, there were still the good guys that fought for the integrity of musicians. Stephen Marcus was the guardian of fairness in an industry often plagued by corruption and shady practices. Every step of his career, he faced a new villain.
Let me tell you, when you manage the Grateful Dead ticket office, a lot of people offer you party favors. So let's just say that some of my brain isn't there anymore.
During the 1970s, Marcus was a ticketing wizard who worked with legendary promoter Bill Graham, who was instrumental in launching the careers of such iconic musicians as Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, and Santana.
Such was the beginning of Bill Graham's extraordinary career as the impresario of rock and roll.
In 1977, counterfeit tickets started popping up.
When you work for a ticketing company, you get to feel the tickets, you get to see the tickets, and you know whether or not they're real.
And Marcus was a ticketing whisperer whose specialty was spotting fakes.
Every single ticket that I took from somebody that I said was fake was in fact fake. If you take your job seriously, you know.
And Marcus took his job seriously. He had a crew of 35 people who'd go around at concerts promoted by Bill Graham Presents, checking for counterfeit tickets. But the thing was, Marcus was way too good at his job. He could sense that something was just not right at Bill Graham Presents. They would overpack concerts by reselling the same tickets over and over again until everyone who wanted to get in got in. And of course, this was all off the books.
I remember going to a Winterland show with Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young.
Hello.
Winterland held 5,400 people, and there had to be close to 10,000 people there. It was impossible to walk. People were sitting 2 people deep in chairs, sitting in all the aisles and the stairways. It was really pathetic. And that was, 1,000, 2,000 tickets a show. The band never saw money from. Every show, that starts adding up. That was when I got pissed off.
What pissed Marcus off was this ticket dubiousness was directly affecting the Grateful Dead. And guitarist Jerry Garcia happened to be one of Marcus's good friends.
What have you been doing since you got out of the hospital to take care of yourself?
Almost nothing.
Almost nothing.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Now that the Grateful Dead are working in their
So Jerry and his band came to Marcus for help. And the Dead's managers told Marcus,
"We know we're being ripped off by Bill Graham Presents, but we don't know how." So they had me go through their settlement files for various shows, and the first one I did was there were 5 Grateful Dead shows for New Year's Eve in 1982 in Oakland. I went through the list, and I found for those 5 shows like $26,000 worth of fake charges and was able to prove it to them. Then they had to go through a whole year, and they realized if Bill Graham was doing this just to them, and Bill Graham Presents promoted 300 plus shows a year.
We had the good fortune of having them get on stage about.
Think of how much money they were making by, inflating costs. Sometimes, $25,000 for a 5-night run or something.
And that's how Marcus became the Grateful Dead's ticketing czar. He set up a system to put fans first. Instead of having the band's tickets sold by the promoters, fans had to buy them directly from the newly established Grateful Dead ticketing office, a mom-and-pop operation that was run out of a house in San Rafael, California. And the only way to get tickets was through money orders.
Thank you for calling the official Grateful Dead mail order hotline. The spring tour information is on this.
A Grateful Dead phone number hotline was set up.
It was the only place that Deadheads could call that number to actually talk to somebody that worked for the Grateful Dead, and we would listen to their problem and see what we could do to help it.
And there were soon to be lots and lots of problems. In 1987, an unexpected occurrence rocked the small, eclectic world of the Grateful Dead.
The band's first ever top 40 hit, Touch of Grey, swelled their following to unprecedented size and attracted some new fans who seemed unfamiliar with traditional Deadhead concert etiquette.
Tickets are a problem now, we have a hard time getting them to everybody who wants them. So if there's that many more people who suddenly want them, it'll be a whole new level of problems for us.
Before 1987, when Touch of Grey came out, there would be maybe 500 people, maybe 1,000 that would show up just to go in Shakedown Street, and because it was a parking lot party with lots of party favors and stuff. Well, after Touch of Grey, all of a sudden there were 5,000 and 10,000 people outside shows without tickets, just coming to do Shakedown Street, and then they would all try to rush the gates and stuff.
Thousands of ticketless fans that tried to storm the fence around the amphitheater. 42 people were arrested, 17 during the nighttime confrontation.
There's like a new, younger kind of people hanging out in the scene, and they just think that they deserve something, and you don't. If you didn't score a ticket or you didn't pay for a ticket, you don't deserve to go in.
Most of the people that came here that caused the problem didn't have a ticket. So, in that sense, they don't have that sort of moral contract with the band that says, I'll buy, you'll sell me a
With
ticket.
the massive popularity brought on by Touch of Grey, people became desperate and were now willing to do anything to get into a sold-out Dead show.
And I was guarding a door that only actually went nowhere. And these girls kept offering me blowjobs and stuff. And so finally I just said, there's nothing there. I'll tell you what, you go in, and when you come out, you tell me whether you're going to give me head or not. And I did that a few times, and of course every time they came back and say, well, you were right.
Touch of Grey's popularity also brought dark, bad elements into the ecosystem of the Grateful Dead. Predators soon emerged that preyed upon the loving good nature of Dead fans. The Grateful Dead Counterfeiter will be right back.
There was nothing better than the Grateful Dead back in the freaking 90s. I'd be on the road sometimes for, 2 months. Just straight up, every single show, if the Dead was touring for 2 months, I wouldn't come home.
Enter Connor McKay.
Part of the Dead is the parking lot. That life out there, traveling with the Deadheads and living that life with them.
And Connor was one who capitalized on this new influx of Dead fans.
There's nothing like with the Dead where you walk out on the streets and there's literally thousands of people looking for tickets.
Yeah, so you don't always get in. You don't have we got an American ticket last show, though.
The Dead, bro, you could just... It was so easy. It was the most unbelievable thing you've ever seen.
Anybody have an extra? I need my very first miracle.
Everybody needed tickets. It was every single person you talked to. I need ticket. Or my buddy needs a ticket. Or this person needs a ticket.
Yeah, we're looking for a couple tickets.
So what if you don't get them? You're just going to head home or hang out anyway? Or?
Oh, no, we'll hang out for sure. We'll get them though.
Connor knew Stephen Marcus by reputation. He was their nemesis. And Connor was part of a large-scale ticketing counterfeiting operation whose main bread and butter was the Grateful Dead.
All my friends who were dealing drugs or doing other bad things to make money, My drugs were tickets. Tickets were my drugs. I sold tickets. Growing up, tickets were my drugs.
And this clean-cut, fast-talking kid was as much of a permanent fixture on Shakedown Street as hash brownies and nitrous oxide tanks.
They called us Blinker King, dude. I was Blinker King for years, bro. Blinker King for years. Blinker is what counterfeit tickets is code word on the street.
When Connor started hustling blinkers at Dead shows, he was only a teenager at the time, just barely old enough to drive. And even though Connor could be found on tour at every single Dead show, the irony was, he was never a fan of the Dead's music.
How about this? I've been to probably, no exaggeration, over 1,000 parking lots of the Grateful Dead, and I've seen them twice in my life, but I've been to over 1,000 shows. Many other shows that you would try to do, you would end up losing because nobody would buy tickets. Never was that the problem at the Dead. I'd show up in a parking lot and these people literally would like chase me to get tickets because there was no other way for them to get in. So we were like God. I almost had that God complex because I could get anything I wanted. Well, I mean, the best ecstasy, fucking coke, acid, shrooms, weed, all that was coming at you every show. They wanted to trade. They wanted to trade with people? Dude, they give you anything. They would literally let you bang their girl to go to the show. They'd be like, hey, just take my girl in the car, blah, 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 blah. Dude, are you out of your fucking mind? Like, for real? And these people depended on us to get in the show because there was no other way of them getting in.
Connor looked at himself as a ticketing Robin Hood. A kid who was taking from the rich and given to the poor, desperate Dead fans. To Connor, counterfeiting tickets was a victimless crime.
People trusted us because we had the right look. You know, they'd walk by 10 guys selling tickets and they'd come to us and they'd buy every time. The only people that I was beating was the promoter, you know? And the promoters didn't even really care. They knew what we were doing and didn't even care because all we were doing is getting more people in the seats where they would buy more merchandise and stuff when they came inside.
Marcus had a vastly different opinion on Connor's self-proclaimed noble crusade.
This counterfeiter saying some bullshit about, oh, the promoters want more people in so they can get more money from people buying tickets. That's total bullshit. 90% of the money went to the Grateful Dead, not the promoter or the house. Counterfeiters are the lowest of the low. You know, they're swamp crap. The Grateful Dead were really, really adamant about ticketing, which is why eventually we were basically trying to control everything so that we made sure the counterfeits didn't get in.
And then a corporate villain emerged that also threatened the Grateful Dead's ecosystem.
Here's your ticket to sporting events, shows, concerts, and for your convenience, your tickets are available now at all Ticketmaster outlets. Tickets at all Ticketmaster outlets now.
The corporate giant Ticketmaster had a monopoly on the ticketing industry. Not only did they control the tickets, but they also controlled the venues.
It just ended up getting to the point where they had their hand on every piece of money.
If a band didn't play ball with Ticketmaster, they'd be performing to empty rooms. Ticketmaster first tried to sue the Grateful Dead for selling their own tickets, and the Dead didn't need Ticketmaster because they sold out every single show. So they came to a compromise. Ticketmaster would sell half of the Dead's tickets,
Ticketmaster outlets now.
while the Dead's ticket office would sell the other half. But the only problem was Ticketmaster tickets were easy to counterfeit. And because Marcus was the ticket whisperer, so the first thing he did at local shows,
I made sure that every ticket was torn at the door.
Unlike Ticketmaster's tickets, each Dead ticket was adorned with original artwork. As much as the fans loved these artistic custom-made tickets, they were also impossible to counterfeit. and they'd constantly switch up ticket stock and printers to prevent counterfeiters. And the Dead's ticket office took other measures too. They had blacklight ink printed on the back of the tickets that said, "Scalpers are scum."
Every ticket taker at the box office would have a black light. If the ticket didn't have "Scalpers or scum" on it, they didn't get in.
And it didn't help matters now that Ticketmaster was selling half of the Dead's tickets.
Now at all Ticketmaster outlets.
It made it easier for hustlers like Connor and his crew to expand their blinker operation. But Ticketmaster was the last to admit it.
There were tickets that were coming in, and the Ticketmaster people were saying they're real, and I said, no, they're fake. And they said, no, they're real. And I said, they're definite fake. The actual president of Ticketmaster in that area was there, and he looked into it. It took him about 20 minutes, a half hour, and then he found out that, in fact, a bunch of packages of Ticketmaster blanks had been stolen. So the tickets were, in fact, real, but the printing didn't seem real to me, but it seemed real to the Ticketmaster people.
Connor worked for these two criminals named Chance and Richie. For his crew, the first step was stealing blank Ticketmaster ticket stock.
Now at all Ticketmaster outlets.
And they even had someone on the inside working with them.
Chance started dating this girl, Helen, who was one of the heads up at Ticketmaster. So they would actually get us blank ticket stock. And I would pay kids sometimes to go into Amoeba Plus. And they'd go in there and grab a whole block of tickets. They come in a brick of 1,000 or 5,000.
And Ticketmaster sold tickets everywhere. So there was no shortage of places where the blinker crew could steal Ticketmaster ticket stock.
And he pretended like he worked for Ticketmaster, and he says, "Hey, I need to see your ticket machine." They open up the drawer and they had like 15,000 blank tickets, you know? He says, "Well, I gotta take these back." He fucking pulled out like 5,000 blank tickets and sent them off to me, and we pieced them off all around the country doing different events. So if we had these blank tickets, it was literally like you had paper to print money on. Like you had $100 bills that you could print $100 bills on. And they'd work anywhere you go because they were real ticket stock.
Yes, Connor literally had paper to print money on. As soon as the Grateful Dead's tour schedule was announced, the blinker operation would start planning.
You'd have to buy a ticket or two tickets so it didn't look obvious. To every single show, that's the only way you could get the real ticket to be able to counterfeit.
Connor's little brother, who at the start was only 11 years old, soon became part of the operation. These legit ticket samples would then be sent off to a printer in Mexico City.
They'd get the tickets done and then they'd ship them off, or they'd send them with me or my little brother. My little brother was like a courier for us. He'd jump on the planes all the time and bring them to wherever we were.
Almost crazier than having your 11-year-old brother fly to Mexico City to pick up counterfeit tickets, Chance's girlfriend eventually even stole an actual Ticketmaster ticket printing machine.
We figured out how to get the thermal paper where you burn it in, and we got the Ticketmaster machine where the printer, we were doing it at the hotel rooms, like at the place, at the venue.
Yeah, like your very own mom and pop counterfeit ticketing operation. They would print counterfeit Dead tickets in a hotel room right outside the concert.
No ticket had ink on it. It was all burn in. That's how Ticketmaster kept switching it up. As they would evolve, we would evolve with them.
Are available now at all Ticketmaster outlets.
Much like Stephen Marcus took pride in his Grateful Dead tickets, Connor took pride in his blinkers.
We would actually be excited sometimes when certain crews would show up. We knew they would bust their ticket, but all ours would get in. Because they would have tickets that would smear, they'd rub off, they were done horrible.
And Connor became the ticket whisperer, but for blinkers.
We'd literally be like, these are fake tickets and ours are real. And people would believe us. And now we're golden.
And a big claim?
I'd make the tickets, and I literally had the box office selling my tickets. Every ticket they'd sell, I get half, they get half. And they would sell thousands of them because they were the box office.
Since Marcus and Ticketmaster were starting to turn up at shows, Connor claims he recruited outside people to join his crew.
How the day goes for everybody depends on the security and how well you take care of your crowds.
Notably, the security staff, who he called the crooks.
And I had the security paid off at the fucking venue. I had to end up paying them like 10 grand. When the Dead would come to town, you know, people would sell nitrous balloons. So they would bust everybody, take all their tanks, and then we had a little corner set up where I had my buddies selling the balloons where the security was protecting us. Ticketmaster was there. They had one line where they were popping people. The crooks, my boys, they had my back. They just hold the tickets and they'd give them back to us and we go resell them again. That one scared the shit out of my boys, the security, and they were like afraid that they were being watched after that, so they kind of like backed off big time.
Marcus has a completely different Rashomon take.
He is absolutely full of shit. The unions have the ticket takers at each building, which means the unions, they have the same people at every building because they make a certain amount of money for taking tickets to every single event. So no, there's not going to be a crew of people doing that. Never happened with the Grateful Dead. We did have a team of security people that toured with the Grateful Dead, and they were actually employees of the Grateful Dead and the promoters, so they knew that if they took extra money, they would be fired on the spot.
And Marcus didn't tolerate any shadiness with his security staff.
One show in Oakland, one girl was really upset because she had actually gone to a security guard and offered to give him head, and he said he would let her in, and she gave him head, and he didn't let her in, and she flipped out, and she came to us at the box office, and then she said, I can show you where I spit it out. We went over there where she said it happened with a security guard that we trusted, and sure enough, there was semen that she had spit out, and she described the security guard, and he got not only fired on the spot, but was arrested and charged with sexual assault.
Still, Connor was just a teenager who just dropped out of 10th grade to become the Blinker King, and was now immersed in the shady underworld of adult hustlers.
I was the kid, bro. The only other kids that would ever come to the shit is my friends that I would bring from school and stuff.
That crew sometimes included Connor's high school girlfriend.
She literally would just walk around with her little backpack on and have all the tickets and money on her, and I'd carry like 4 to 6 tickets on me at a time, and so if I ever got popped, I could just be like, hey, I just bought these, I'm buying and selling tickets, you know, and get out of it. If I had like 100 seats on me, there's no getting out of that. Other people that were in the crews were like other guys in the ticket business all across the state. So they'd all fly out from wherever state they're from, and we'd just go out there and do our thing. Like, we'd do 500 tickets for a show. We'd bring 7 guys and give each guy 70 tickets apiece or 60 tickets apiece. Some shows we wouldn't bring anybody, and I'd handle the whole thing.
But as you can imagine, having all these extra people crammed inside a packed, sold-out show had its repercussions.
Police call it a riot, the band calls it a disturbance.
A scene so chaotic that Indiana State Police riot squads were called in.
I thought they were going to take the whole fence down. People just storming the hill.
3,000 of them, according to sheriff's deputies.
There were so many people that still needed to get in. They bomb rushed the gates and broke the fucking gates down, and everybody ended up getting in for free. Everybody. Anybody that came up there could get in. They didn't even ask for tickets. But I already had sold all the tickets and we were already done.
And despite all the money he was making, Connor, the ticketing Robin Hood, felt like he was doing a public service.
When people were getting in all the shows, I felt like I was making people's dreams come true. They couldn't get in if it weren't for me. They literally could not get to the show they wanted to go to if I did not exist. These people looked at me like I was a god. They'd see me at other shows, like the Deadhead. They'd be like, that's the ticket guy, man. Fuck, you got any tickets for today? They just knew who I was. They knew I'd have tickets, and they knew that the tickets were good.
And this moral counterfeiter had a little ritual he would always follow at the end of an evening of hustling on Shakedown Street.
I would always give away my last pair of tickets, always. It was like a karma thing for me. See these people out there, I need a miracle, blah, 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 you know, and after I killed it, made a bunch of money, my last pair of tickets, I would always just go up and just hand them to somebody. Like, have a good time, guys. Oh, dude, go no way. There's certain things I believe with karma. I have my whole life. What goes around comes around.
Connor believed that the karma he was generating would come back to him tenfold. Marcus felt otherwise.
The guy's lying through his fucking teeth. No, there's no such thing as a moral counterfeiter. Every counterfeiter are fucking scumbags. If he's out on tour, he's out on tour for him only, not for the promoter, not for anybody else, just him.
Marcus breaks down his reasoning for his crusade against ticket counterfeiters.
Counterfeit ticketing is absolutely a victim crime. Every single person that buys a counterfeit is a victim, especially if they don't get in. Oh yeah, all our tickets got in. They're going to say that to you officially. They're not going to tell you the truth. Yeah, 98% of our tickets don't get in.
After Touch of Grey prompted a major increase in attendance at Dead shows and the rise of counterfeiting, Marcus, who was already touring with the Dead at every show, had a methodology that could easily dispute Connor's claim that all his blinker tickets got people in.
After I had verified which ones were fake and which ones were real, I would show the ticket takers and the security and the building management the tickets, and I would say that we would get usually between 450 to 475 counterfeits at the door. Usually what would happen is when they would go in with their ticket, they'd slip a 20 with the ticket and the ticket taker would let them in. We knew that happened. But I would say this counterfeiter is just lying through his teeth. They're all bullshitters.
As the band's popularity soared, Marcus still kept with the ethos of the Dead. He made sure that ticket prices were always reasonable for Dead fans.
The other bands would have 80 or 100. We would be somewhere in the middle, usually no more than $30 a ticket.
Connor's ticket pricing was a bit different.
I was selling them for $180 to $200 a ticket. When you go to a Grateful Dead show in Deerfield, Indiana, and you sell 300 tickets in fucking like 3 hours on the campground, and you're getting $200 a seat, I mean, come on. There's no sense of money's value. I'd come back to the room, and I'd have so much money. I've never had a value for the dollar because I made it so easy and I spent it so easily. Just always frivolously spending money.
And what does a teenage hustler who is making so much cash do with all that money after blinker gigs?
I partied all the time. I was out of my mind. I mean, we did a bunch of crazy shit, me and my friends. We went crazy. We're in Vegas, and I said, I'm fucking spending this money tonight. We're not going to go home with anything, and we spent it. We did a bunch of we got a bunch of hooker. We're popping bottles of Cristal in the back of the limo, busting them open. I mean, $600-700 bottles of champagne, just popping them like they're freaking, Coke bottles.
People deep in the blinker game were feeding an addiction.
Tickets from a drug.
And Connor clearly had an addiction.
Everybody in the ticket business gambles. Everybody. I think it's the rush, man. It's like doing any kind of drug. You can smoke crack or you gamble. It's the same kind of rush. And once you get it, you want it. And you want it all the time. And it doesn't even matter how much you win. You can't win enough. You can't win enough. Tickets from a drug.
And all that blinker money made off the backs of desperate Dead fans would go out as quickly as it came in.
I could go make $50,000 and I'd come home with not a dollar in my pocket. So it was pretty bad. I bet $1,000 every football game, every baseball game, every total, every over-under. When I was 15, 16 years old, I had a bookie that would take $10,000 bet for me for any game. I mean, I'd go to Vegas, I'd be betting whatever the max bet is on your hand, and I'd be playing 2-3 hands at a time.
And then there was the phone call Connor would sometimes have to make to his girlfriend after a Dead show.
Hey, I'm coming home with nothing. How about that? I lied to you. I didn't make any money. How about that? So I came home broke as fuck, not a dollar in my pocket. There was always another Dead show. It was always there. There was no matter what, I knew I'd make it again. So I had no fear of losing. It didn't matter to me. There was too much money back then. It was so easy to make. It was crazy. It was like you're printing $100 bills, man. It was insane.
The Grateful Dead Counterfeiter will be right back. Now, the reason the FBI cracks down on counterfeit tickets is the Bureau was formed to combat the rise of counterfeit money. In the Fed's reasoning, if a crew is capable of creating fake tickets, then they might be capable of printing fake money. And because Connor and the Blinker crews were flooding Dead shows with so many counterfeits, the FBI contacted Marcus to help them crack down on the Blinker crews. And Marcus found himself on a long, strange trip when the FBI needed his consulting.
I walked in there and it was just really strange because at that time when I did that, I had long hair and a beard. I mean, I looked like a deadhead.
But Marcus impressed the FBI with his Zen master counterfeit spotting skills.
They had me put on white gloves, and there was this huge table with tickets in piles all over it. And I took a look at the top of each pile without touching a ticket, and I said, they're all fake. And they said, no, you have to go through them. And I said, I don't have to go through them. They're all fake. And they said, yes, you have to go through them. So I started with one pile, and each pile had 500 to 1,000 tickets in it. I went through one pile, and out of 1,200 tickets, there were 2 real ones. And then they said, well, I guess you don't have to go through all of them.
Even though the Blinker crews were using real Ticketmaster ticket stock, Marcus knew the exact thing that couldn't be counterfeited.
When they counterfeited the tickets, that information included a code from a store that was different than where the ticket stock came from. So all of a sudden, they found out that, in fact, there were, 1,000 tickets.
Now that Marcus and the FBI had joined forces and were cracking down on counterfeit tickets, Carter started to feel the heat coming down on his crew at Dead shows.
Ticketmaster was there. They had the serial number of the stolen ticket stock, and that's how they caught it. But then they tied it up to shows in Chicago. They had that stock from all around. That's why I knew they were coming after me hard.
And trying to keep all those loose ends together suddenly became like a fever dream.
I know where I got the ticket stock, where the feds came and tried to get my boy at the store at Publix, where he gave them to me, and they questioned him. He sold the stock for me. Like, he literally went in there and dropped it in a trash can, took out the trash, and then gave me all these blank tickets. And that's how Ticketmaster knew what numbers on the back of the ticket to look for. And he ended up quitting because he was so scared he was going to go to fucking jail.
And that fever dream kept mounting.
The more people you got involved, the more people got greedy. You had a lot more people out there looking at you, or if they got busted. Like one of my buddies, Sonny, got busted in Chicago at a Grateful Dead show, and the feds grabbed him. And they had a whole list of items that they were looking for. He disappeared. We didn't see him, and then all of a sudden he shows up at the airport when we're about to get on the plane, and he said the feds had him all night, and they were asking him 1,000,001 questions about me and where did he get the tickets from. And that was the one that scared the fucking shit out of me. That made kind of like said, you need to get the fuck out of this game or something bad's going to happen.
And for teenage Connor, getting arrested became a regular routine. Getting arrested was just part of the cat and mouse game.
9 out of the 10 times I get caught, I talk him out of it. I'd be like, I just bought him off some dude on this corner over here, man. What are you talking about? These aren't real? Are you fucking kidding me? Blah, 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 blah. And next thing you know, they're like, all right, well, we're going to take these off of you, and we're going to let you go. And I'm like, okay, boom, I'd be gone. Out the back door,
But still, it was inevitable that karma had to eventually run out. Right when he turned 18, Connor was busted hard. It was the very first time he was busted as an adult, and they were going to throw the book at him.
They wanted to know who was making the tickets. That's what their goal was. They thought I was just the guy who was selling them, but I happened to be at every venue. I'm sure they had my fingerprints on the tickets. I'm sure they had multiple places that they had my fingerprints on the tickets. I mean, Chance and Richie were the ones that were actually running it. I was just their face. I was the one that got to go out and distribute the tickets. They stayed in the room. They stayed in the hotel room making the tickets. They did all that shit. All they did was want to collect the money on the back end.
They held Connor for a few days, but he eventually got out when his sleazy lawyer paid off the judge. But the Blinker King's life began to spiral further out of control.
When I'm listening to 99X on the radio and they're giving my description, and then I look at Polestar magazine and they got a whole fucking story on it, and the feds are at my boys, yes, it fucking scared the shit out of me.
Marcus, who was already on tour with the Grateful Dead, also stepped up his game. He took his combat against counterfeiters one step further.
I set up a table outside the concert with a sign that said ticket verification with the huge steal your face logo. And I would sit there and people would come up before they bought a ticket from somebody
I need my very first miracle.
to have me verify that the ticket was real.
A lot of the people who bought the blinkers just thought they were getting overinflated scalper tickets.
There would be people who bought them in the parking lot and would be absolutely horrified that they were counterfeit. They would beg and scream and yell and threaten to beat the shit out of me. Eventually, they would realize that there was no way I was going to do anything for them.
Though gruff on the exterior, Marcus would also have empathy for those who got ripped off by the likes of Connor and his Blinker crew.
If there were 50 or 100 guest list tickets remaining, they would give them to me. And what I would do is, when somebody who was really obviously screwed, I would trade them their counterfeit for a real one.
Yeah, we're looking for a couple tickets.
And it got to the point where people knew that I would always have tickets. So a friend of mine had a T-shirt made up that said, "No, I don't have a ticket."
And like a true Robin Hood, Marcus would sometimes make people's dreams come true.
There would be a few that were gutsy and would come up and ask, and I would say, "You better not pass this around, but here's a ticket." Because every day that I wore that T-shirt that said, "No, I don't have an extra ticket," I always had 10 to 50 tickets in my pocket.
The new system with the ticket verification booth was showing results.
Because we were checking tickets hours before the shows went on sale, I would find counterfeits and then show them to all the ticket takers and the security, and they would know exactly what to look for. And I would say 99% of the counterfeit tickets would not get in. That was when all of a sudden these counterfeiters weren't treated as gods, they were treated suspiciously.
But there was one thing that put a monkey wrench into Connor and his Blinker crew. And that monkey wrench went by the name barcodes. The Grateful Dead Counterfeiter will be right back. A barcode is a method of representing data in a visual machine-readable form. These patterns represent different characters or numbers when scanned by a barcode reader. Barcodes were introduced to the ticket industry, and they were impossible to counterfeit.
It slowly happened. They started doing barcodes at certain places, and they started doing barcodes here, and they started doing it there, and then next thing you know, it's at every damn venue. And certain venues, we found out that weren't scanning their tickets, we kept doing it there. I felt no problem in getting somebody into an event that they couldn't get in if they didn't deal with me. I felt like I was doing them a favor.
I need my very first miracle.
I was making their dream come true. But the second that I knew they weren't getting in, I would not rob somebody. And that started happening. Like Madison Square Garden, it happened. Oh my God, it was fucking horrible.
Since New York City Dead shows had the reputation for large amounts of counterfeit tickets, Marcus took extra precautions.
Grateful Dead concerts went on sale. Madison Square Garden box office was not allowed to sell a ticket.
Marcus even had his crew go inside Madison Square Garden. And in the first 20 rows of seats of the show, they would interview every single person and ask them,
where did you get your ticket? And they found out when they started doing that, primarily New York City shows, that was where all the best seats were counterfeiters.
And with this scrutinized crackdown from the feds, that meant more security. And more security meant more undercover cops at Dead shows.
A secret to tell whether or not there are police in a show, if they're dressed with old jeans and t-shirt and jackets or something, their shoes are brand new, they're police.
Yeah, they'd be dressed like a regular person and just be like, hey, I need tickets. They buy them and they bust you right there on the spot. They'd take down like 10, 12 guys. They wouldn't just bust me, they'd bust anybody who was out there.
This additional crackdown was working.
I went out there, I started selling tickets, then all of a sudden these guys come back and go, hey, your tickets are fucking counterfeit, man. I can't get in. I'm like, what are you fucking talking about? And they're like, there's a fucking fake tickets, man. He's the guy with the fake tickets. And they started fucking screaming and yelling at me. Get him. And I'm like, fuck.
The hippies started chasing Connor around the arena. The people who once thought Connor was a god were now trying to hit him with skateboards. So Connor did the only dignified thing he could do.
So I started running down the street. I jump on the subway. I go down a couple exits, get off the thing. Next thing you know, this dude who runs the streets in New York called Knockout Pete.
Knockout Pete was a legendary hustler on the streets of New York.
And he fucking rolls up on me. And he would literally just walk up to people and rob them. He'd just take your shit and say, what are you going to do about it? And if you try to do something, he'd knock you out. I'm in his backyard. I'm selling tickets. He wants some action. That's all he cared about. He wanted to make money. Hey, man, you're in my town. You're fucking selling these fucking bullshit tickets. I'm gonna fuck you up, you know? And I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? I'm here. I said, we can all make money. Let's work something out here. I ended up fucking talking this guy into buying every ticket I had on me. And I ended up jumping on a fucking plane and getting the fuck out of there knowing not one ticket was working. So he thought I did him a favor, but at the end of the day, I was literally going to jump on a plane and throw the tickets in the trash can. Like, get the fuck out of there as quick as I could.
Madison Square Garden was a big financial loss. And angry deadheads weren't the only people who were now coming after Connor.
When I'm having to pay my bookie every Tuesday after Monday Night Football, you know, $30,000, $40,000, and I'm not making that kind of money, that's when it got bad. That's when it got heated.
Karma had finally caught up with the Blinker King. Connor was no longer popping bottles of Cristal, especially when his bookie sent guys like Big Mike to collect.
Hey, Howie told me to come collect from you, you know? And I'm like, well, I don't have it. I don't know what the fuck you want me to do. What are you going to do? Like, well, you don't want me to talk to you again. When are you going to have it? And I'd be like, I'll have it next week, blah, blah, blah. There was always next weekend. And there was always the Dead coming. It was always there. There was no matter what, I knew I'd make it again.
But there was one thing both Marcus and Connor didn't expect that would stop both of them.
How long can the phenomenon of the Grateful Dead and its following exist?
I would venture a guess and say as long as they can stand.
If you have something that works, and if you don't burn it out, it'll last for as long as it'll last for.
It all peaked in 1995 when they rushed the gates at Deer Creek Amphitheater in Indianapolis and ended up tearing down a fence. All of a sudden, cities said, you're not coming back. You're not welcome. Well, Jerry died, so that ended that.
The world of rock is mourning the passing of legendary Grateful Dead guitarist Jerry Garcia. Jerry Garcia, the lead guitarist and co-founder of the band known as the Grateful Dead, died today.
He captured all the best spirit of the human qualities, you know.
A real sad time is when Jerry died. Holy fuck, man. That was a dagger, bro. In Chicago when he died, I mean, we were on tour with him and he passed away, and we're just like, our ride is over. Our ride is over. The cash cow is gone. The easy money is gone. Our ride is over.
I imagine Connor wept when he heard the news, somewhere on the road in a hotel, standing amongst a pile of now worthless paper.
The ticket game will grab you, dude, because you've never seen more cash and more money come in quicker and faster than you can see. It's so hard to get out of it, and it's almost like a curse to learn the game. Your mind's so fucked up. There's a lot about the ticket business that's very shady and dark and it's bad, man. You're paying people off. You're not honest. People in this game, they're not honest. They're messing people over. They're doing things that they shouldn't be doing.
And like holding a mirror up to himself and finally seeing his own reflection.
I don't know. I don't know too many people in the ticket game that come out that they're good people.
But still, it wasn't so much the death of Jerry that stopped Connor.
When it came to a close, brother, is when barcodes happened for me. And that's when it came to a close. Otherwise, I'd probably still be doing it to today. Probably still be doing it to today. Tickets for my drugs.
For Marcus, the death of Jerry Garcia meant losing a best friend. At the Dead's ticket office in San Rafael, it was heartbreaking. Marcus and his staff lit candles and prayed. Despite finally beating Connor's blinker game, Marcus knew this signaled a change. He decided to move on and retired from the Grateful Dead ticket office.
After Jerry died, the Grateful Dead ended, and so did Grateful Dead ticket sales.
Thank you for calling the official Grateful Dead mail order hotline. Tickets will be available by mail order only starting December 11th. The mail order ticket price is $20 per ticket. You may order a maximum of 4 tickets per concert. All instructions must be followed exactly. Each person must fill out their own order. Duplications of any kind will cause disqualification of all involved orders.
When I would do the Grateful Dead to hotlines, I would end each message with, "Thank you and stay in touch."
You've been listening to The Grateful Dead Counterfeiter, presented by CH101. Produced and story by Harmon Leon and Alex Stark. Written, edited, and sound designed by Harmon Leon. Check out more at comedyhistory101.com.